Hi, Craig. Thank you very much for joining the Agent Build Expert Exchange podcast.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
No worries. How have you been?
Been doing well, thanks. Been kept very busy in this wonderful, accelerating world of AI, and so I think there's lots for us to talk about today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So before we dive in, let's start with you, right? I am really interested in understanding what your journey has been and how you got into this world of AI, right? And what excites you most nowadays about AI?
Yeah, sure thing. And so, like, it's been a journey, right? And so, like, my role right now is as chief AI officer for Capgemini in Europe in their insights and data business. And so, I have the privilege and the honor to be able to work with many different organizations and clients across many different industries as they think about their accelerating path on AI. And it's a hugely exciting time, right? It's the most disruptive technical wave that we have seen in any technology waves. But I've been doing data and AI for the best part of over 25 years. I've worked in many different roles in consulting, in startups, in scale ups, in cloud. I've worked in public and private sector as well. So I've come at this from different angles. And I've seen the journey of change as well. You know, I grew up firmly around data, and I've seen us move from a world where data was very much embedded in apps, and then we had data warehouses, and data became separate from applications. And from warehouses came lakes. Many of those lakes became swamps. From lakes became lake houses. From lake houses, we moved to mesh and to distribution of data. So we're moving back towards decentralization. And across that wave, we've seen the shift from using data to drive insights, to describe, to move towards how we prescribe and how we predict. And over that time, analytics and statistics and machine learning and AI has grown up through that as well. And so we're at this great time now where we're seeing that the predictive and the acting power, the ability to not just only identify opportunity, but to act on it, continues to drive with AI. So that journey has been really interesting to see. And I think we've seen AI graduate from research into operations, especially over the last 10 years, especially with deep learning and with the invent of the transformer model and neural nets starting to really drive forward towards GPTs and how we think about generative or AI and now agentic AI. So this has come in waves. This has compounded on subsequent waves, all the way back from how we laid out networking and the internet to the big data rush to the mobile and the app, like, proliferation. And all of these have been compounding effects that have started to drive more and more trajectory on AI. So that's my kind of like look back perspective on this, and it's just getting faster now.
Nice. And what excites you most today?
I think what excites me most today is the rate of adoption that we're
Mhm.
seeing and the change in how people are starting to think about how AI is so foundational. We're seeing, of course, that intelligence just continues to grow exponentially this year. We'll see PhD level advancements in math and science evals on all of these models. We're seeing agentic AI in particular break into software engineering as a first core ground, and it'll become more and more operational. We're seeing AI become physical with robotics. So there's so many areas that excite me, but all of these are compounding together. And the backdrop of that is as these models continue to get exponentially better, the economics of them continues to drop and become far more cheaper at a rapid rate. And so what that means is it's becoming economically viable for any organization. And with all the hype, the mindset at a board level means that everybody is thinking about AI no longer as a technical strategy, but as a fundamental part of their business strategy. So these things are coming together. It really excites me because economically, increasingly viable, intelligence wise, increasingly impressive, and culturally, more appetite to adopt in the right way.
That's great. And I think it kind of appears in my conversations with customers as well. Like we are in a much better place than 2 years ago, where there was much, fear, uncertainty, and doubt with AI. It's still there, but I think we have come a long way, right?
Yeah.
Let me before getting further, let me give you some context of why we do why I'm doing this podcast, right? And why we are here. So you see, when generative AI came up, and there was all of this hype in social media, there still is, but um, there's still every day we had a new news about AI, and I was wondering how do I learn all of these things? And one of the things that I realized is it was not only me, like there's so many other people in the industry, professionals who want to understand what AI is, what is generative AI, where are we going with this, and what is hype and what is real, right?
Right.
And that's why I started this agent build community with the intention that, hey, we will learn together, but we will also bring in experts from the industry who are actually working with enterprises, startups, SMBs, and gain insights from them what actually is happening on the ground, right? And I think the agent build expert exchange is that mechanism to bring people like you who are constantly working on this topic now with customers, with different organizations, and just pick your brains on and get some status update if you like what's happening, right? So our audience is basically we are talking to the professionals who are either skeptical about AI or they are fully bought into the idea. They are learning, they want to learn more, and they want to get insights from people who are working on the ground, right? So with that in mind, what I've done is I've structured our podcast in three major areas around people, process, and technology, and we'll see how you are observing how enterprises are adopting in all of these three lenses, right?
Mhm.
So I think what we start with is with the people part. So how do you think AI capabilities are kind of changing or reshaping the roles and responsibilities in the
Yeah.
enterprises?
Yeah, I think it's a really important place to begin the conversation because AI is fundamentally about how humans can leverage it to drive value. And we're seeing that the way people think about roles and responsibilities is fundamentally shifting. I think some of the aspects is traditionally, if you look at any enterprise, the typical split will be that there are 80% of people doing and 20% directing. And now we're seeing that inverting. In an agentic world over the next few years, we're going to see 80% directing, 20 doing, and the directing will be directing cohorts of agents and blended teams of people plus agents in the future. What that means is, from a roles and responsibilities perspective, people need to think differently about what's valued in their people and in their teams. And we've seen this debate and conversation on social media about intelligence versus agency, right? And for those that haven't seen it, like as intelligence becomes more commoditized, as people in roles, having an agency mindset is more important. And that stands for owning your own destiny, being able to continuously learn, handling uncertainty, being able to understand how to interact with AI, but to remain critical in thinking. Because more and more, as we rely on intelligence from machines, having the critical mindset to actually be able to interpret and still think around how we apply that is going to be really important. So that is an important dynamic. From a responsibility perspective, we're seeing that metrics of success in teams are shifting as well. How do you measure what good looks like? It's no longer that value equals to time and effort, right? And so
Mm.
how we work is different. It's more around velocity of value and how you can drive out velocity by leveraging and harnessing AI more as a mechanism of incentivization rather than how much time and hours you're spending into something. So that mindset is shifting. Um, and then I think the other key thing here as well is as we start to see AI help to orchestrate how we work across value chains, across organizations, whether it be with knowledge mining, with collaboration, with sharing of information, with agents connecting the dots. The ability for people to think more widely than their exact remit of control is important. Understanding the piece they play in a wider lens of the world and of their organization is a key attribute. One example, I think, which is a favorite for me right now in terms of how impactful this is going to be around roles and responsibilities, is from Moderna. And like, if you look at their announcement that was out a few weeks ago, I don't understand if you saw it, but they've recently made the decision to create a single executive level role, bringing together the chief HR officer and the chief digital officer into a single exec role. And the
Oh,
reason
okay.
why they've done that is because they see how fundamental AI is going to be to people, and the fact that they need to think collectively of this at an executive level and drive that through their organization. It's a very bullish move by Moderna, but they are combining HR and technology into a single executive construct to start to think about the dynamics of shaping roles and responsibilities different.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't notice that news, but now I'll go and explore. But that is like it's a really good example, right? And I think what I'm observing in organizations is people are, yes, like, there has to be like the technical learning, right? So
Right.
we're focusing on like doing hackathons and prompt engineering workshops and things like that in a lot of our customers. And what we realize is, yes, that's there, but how do we bring people together in terms of not only learning this stuff, but actually applying them to their work and changing the whole mindset, right? So what do you think in terms of cultural shifts that these organizations need to embrace
Yeah.
to be truly AI native?
So I think one thing that's been consistent for at least the last 5 years is that culture is the biggest impediment to change, and getting that right is actually the most important thing. And so there's a few things here that you need to do and get right. The first is top-down leadership driving that cultural wave. And it's been really interesting to see a number of organizations over the last few months, it's increasing now as well, coming forward with very public mandates on how we need to be AI first in our thinking as businesses. So you might have seen Shopify or Fiverr come out with some of these principles. And like for those that haven't seen it, like Shopify's CEO came out with a new mandate. Some of those were, we are encouraging everybody to lean in to be AI first in everything they do. We expect whenever you start a new project that the first sprint of work needs to be prototyping with AI. When we look at talent evaluations and reward and recognition at the end of the year, we will wait on your use of AI. And a very punchy one is every time you want to apply or create a business case for a new role, we need to set the case as to why AI can't do that job. Now, not everybody might take that last one because that's punchy, but the top down tenets and principles from leadership mandating that this is important, it's coming, and we are committed as leaders to drive this change through is very important. It follows on from like the infamous Bezos API mandate, right? Where Jeff Bezos and Amazon talk about why APIs are so fundamental, and like so that's an important part of culture. The other part is creating accessibility for people to be able to experiment with these tools. Too many organizations are locking down tools in overkill mode. And what that results in is lots of shadow IT and lots of people becoming disenfranchised with the organization instead of having the ability to play, learn, and experiment. That should be coupled with the cultural change and leadership talking about it's okay to experiment, it's okay to take non regrettable risk, fail fast, and take those risks in a calculated way. So, like creating access to these tools, encouraging people to use them, providing strong top down mandate are core imperatives for how you drive on this change. The fail fast, just to give you another example for me, and like learn and iterate.
Hmm.
Like Klarna is a good story I've been following in the market. And for those that don't know Klarna, they're a great, way for you to be able to split up payments at the point of payment, and pay off over different periods. They about 18 months ago had the public press release that they were going 100% AI across their contact center.
Mhm.
Very bullish at the time. They drove it through, but just recently, about 2 months ago, they decided they were actually going to start to hire people back into their contact center because they realized that they need to get the mix right between human to human interaction, maintaining good NPS, whilst also accelerating how calls are handled. So they've demonstrated a culture to be bold, but to also pivot and iterate where they need to get it right.
Yeah, I've followed that story as well, and it's fascinating. They just came up and owned that, say, hey, we have made the mistake. We are bringing people back in, right? So,
Right.
um, You see, so I from the operational perspective, right, or the process perspective, obviously you said that AI has kind of moved from research to operations, right? So enterprise operations, and yes, there's still gap, and we knew, when generative AI came up, there were a lot of POCs being done which were failing, and enterprises were and still are struggling to operationalize AI. So, in your experience, like especially from the process perspective, what are the major roadblocks that organizations face in terms of
Yeah.
operationalizing?
And I think like if there was a big theme this year aside from agentic AI, it's getting to production at scale and operationalizing. That's the big theme as
Absolutely.
well, right? So like everyone is tired of POCs, and so like if you look at that operational kind of like what are the common roadblocks, and in particular on a process level, we've touched on culture. That's a big one, but thinking about how to take a two-step approach to process change is important for me. The first is there are two opportunities in agentic, right? How you can augment existing process and looking for areas where there is high priority value to be had, but low risk in terms of there are quite manual, repetitive, predictable process. That's a good place to adopt and start to drive early immediate value in how you can drive automation and augmentation into process. The second wave of that is how do you start to think about reinventing processes, because we're missing most of the value if all we're doing is allowing AI to just augment existing. The bigger opportunity is how we completely reinvent. So thinking about it in that way is going to be important. The other thing here that's going to be really important is it's not just about the AI, right? It is about how you drive whole of system change that takes through the full stack of technology. And that requires modular, flexible, scalable technology on cloud that allows for you to be able to scale really well. Um, it requires for modernization of your data so that that data is available, accessible, doesn't have to be centralized. I advocate for decentralization, but you need to have modern data foundations, of course, built for AI, right, as well. The other key thing here is as you start to scale and operationalize AI into process, you need to have strong orchestration, because we will be coming into a world where there are not just one or two, but hundreds and thousands of agents acting in synchronization across an organization. And having the right orchestration layer is imperative. And we see protocols now like MCP and A2A helping to drive that. And then finally, you need to be able to have the right integration mechanisms into your applications of action, into your teams, so that these agents are actually able to have access to tools, have access to data, have the right access to guardrails around ethics and protocols on how they should act around security. So taking that full stack approach is going to be very important to integrate into business process and drive the operational change that's required as well. And of course, people change is another piece.
Yeah. And you mentioned ethics, right? Obviously, I see um, in enterprise in enterprises productionizing some of these use cases. I mean,
Yeah,
doing a POC and a demo is fine, but you have to, as you scale, you have to really think hard about the governance piece of it, the security, the ethics, being responsible about how you roll out AI into your organization and outside to your customers, right? How do you see AI is driving that change? How are these like governance processes around ethics and responsible AI changing?
yeah.
Because I think there's been a lot more discussion about it now than before.
Yeah.
I would love to like hear your take on it.
Yeah, and we could do a whole conversation on ethics, right? There's so much to unpack in ethics. But like you're totally right, like this is bringing ethics to the forefront much more,
Yeah.
because a lot of what we're doing is being accelerated, automated, and amplified, and like that requires real transparency and trust in the customers that are using and leveraging AI. And so what I'm seeing is that, firstly, you need to take an ethics first approach to how you think about designing and deploying and operating AI. It can't be something you bake in as an afterthought. And it requires real cross-functional thinking. When we think about ethics, there's many different lenses to it. It's regulatory, it's legal, it's from a
Mhm.
brand voice perspective, it's from a how do you drive great consumer trust. and a bunch of other things. And so you need to think about that holistically. I think you need to think about not only how you drive ethics in the right way once for a single AI system or use case, it's how you do ethics at scale as well. And so there's this dynamic where you have to create, AI will be autonomous, embedded into every business process, and you need it to be so. But you need to have uniformity in your ethics. And so you need to have a strong enterprise-wide approach to how you think about security, privacy, regulatory adherence, the right ethical guardrails in general that any AI application, any agentic application leverages in uniformity. Because the last thing you want is an agent talking to your customer, maybe over a digital channel, and that's contradicting the ethical guardrails that's been talked about maybe in a contact center. You need to have strong uniformity. So that's a big and an important part. And then finally, like on the actual like customer experience lens of this, I think there are some factors that have held true with AI and machine learning for a while that are continuing to be amplified. And those are, firstly, transparency, knowing that you're interacting with AI, control, having the ability to opt out from a number of angles, opt out for my data being used in this system, opt out from using this in general, and explainability, but just enough explainability, because there's no ways that you can provide full transparency, especially into a large language model. But there needs to be enough explainability about why an AI is providing particular decisions to you as a customer. So those things I think are all wrapped up into some of this ethics piece. And like those are the features of trust, essentially, that needs to be baked into how you think about deploying AI as well.
Makes sense. I think once you look at the whole lens and how AI has evolved from I don't know, 2022 when ChatGPT came up and generative AI has like taken taken all our life, right? So we are basically talking about AI all day. Um, what I wanted to understand is if you look into the future, what is one disruptive thing that you think will happen, or from the technology perspective, right? So what is the most disruptive shift in AI technology for enterprises?
Yeah. I mean, this is a big question. Like the default answer is agents, right? So like
Yeah.
obviously we're now in the agentic wave, right? And so that's obviously going to be very disruptive. We're going to see a lot of process, a lot of activity become more and more automated through that. I think like if you think about what that sets the stage for, there's a few things. I'm going to cheat and not give you one. Sorry, Sandy, I'm going to give you a few.
Yeah.
But like I think like I mentioned earlier, like to me, like I think what if we think about like organizations that work and operate more in the physical world, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is pharmaceuticals, whether there are organizations that have supply chains like in fashion retail or grocery retail or in automotive, the compounding of agents plus robotics is going to be hugely disruptive. And we're seeing this new wave. Jensen Huang talks about the next wave of AI being physical AI.
Mhm.
Robotics is going to be a hugely disruptive piece that will help to really drive massive improvement, massive optimization in how we deliver on high quality, high velocity of goods and services through supply chains, through manufacturing, through a lot of the goods that we buy as well that will become increasingly intelligent as well, right? So to me, that's definitely one. I think more generally, if we think about the next few years and any enterprise, we're going to see AI revolutionize what it means to think about software. And I
Mhm.
said earlier that software engineering is going to be the first agentic AI stronghold this year. We are going to increasingly be rethinking what it means to build, buy, and operate software in our organizations. Building it will be, very much agentic led. How we think about software as a service might flip to become service as a software, where we auto generate code on the fly to meet with particular needs in our businesses. When we think about how software is written today, it's deterministic. And
Mhm.
now we need to move towards a world of probabilistic software. And that's a very different way of thinking about how worlds should work and how we can trust the outcomes and outputs of a software, especially if we look at areas like financial reporting and regulatory reporting. How do we really leverage this and that? And that's going to be very interesting and disruptive to see. And
Mm.
then finally, when we think about the user interfaces of software, we're going to see a huge disruption in what it means to interface. Right now, most of our interfacing is humans with software. More and more over the next 3 years, it's going to be agents interfacing with software. And so we have to start building out UIs for agents across everything, in our back ends, in our front ends, how we think about interacting over the web, how people monetize products on the internet, how advertising works with click rates and spend per ad is all going to be revolutionized based around agentic interfacing and development of software.
Wow, that's a pretty concise. Like, you've covered everything possible, and I think I'm already seeing some of the shifts, right, with agents and how enterprises are thinking in this field. To be honest, what I wish, I mean, you talked about robotics. I wish AI does my laundry, does my dishes, and takes care of all the chores, right? So that's where we will truly leverage AI in our houses, right?
100%. I just bought a new robot lawnmower, by the way, which
Oh,
is
really? Okay.
fully LLM driven, and it's amazing because it can just mow my lawn without me having to do anything. And I can't believe how good it has got. If I looked at electric or robot lawnmowers 2 years ago to today, like just in our personal lives, the way we're seeing these things grow and develop is amazing. It's funny to see how humans are engaging with AI, though. And sorry to talk about this robot lawnmower for a little bit longer. Um,
It's fine.
you
Yeah.
know, we start to think of them more as people as well. And so, like, it got stuck outside on a root of a tree in my garden and started like spinning. And I felt sorry for it.
Yeah.
I went to go rescue it. And I wondered to myself, why am I feeling sorry for this thing? It has no emotions. But there is this interesting dynamic where we start to think about machines as people now as well.
Yeah, I think you're thankful. You're thankful to
Yeah.
that lot more. Um, Talking about, adoption of AI in enterprises, right? What would be one piece of advice that you would want to give to enterprise leaders who are trying to prepare for the AI future, and what would it be?
Yeah. Start now. Doing nothing is not an option. It's not a slow march to death, it's a fast march to death. And so like you need to start now, you know, start to strategize, start to really think and bake it into your business plans. Increasingly, I am seeing that chief financial officers are being challenged by their boards to talk about their next business planning cycle on how productivity gains will be realized by AI. So we're seeing this more and more as a business imperative. But I think that when you talk about starting now as well, to me there are two key strategies that I would talk to any leader of a business about. The first is to pick some priorities, focus, and go deep all the way to production with AI, whatever those few use cases are. And we spoke about it earlier. Some of the big barriers to getting to scale are not taking this whole of system approach. Focus on a key area, whether it be optimizing for reduced scrappage in how you manufacture, or driving out cost in procurement and how you procure, or driving up an X percentage in NPS in how you deliver better customer experience, or reducing false positives in fraud, whatever it be. Pick an area and take that use case all the way to production. Consider it of a full slice of technology, data, AI, application integration, people and process change. You'll learn a heck of a lot, and you'll be able to make that a foothold to start to scale more and more across your organization as well. The second strategy is the absolute contradiction to what I've just said. Go broad across your organization as well. And with the go broad piece, what you want to do is to provide access to tools for people to start to experiment in safe and non-regrettable ways. Give people access to AI tools that allow for them to augment how they run meetings, how they do research, how they collaborate across the organization, how they mine for information. Those are all things that you can do with relatively low risk, and you can start to turn the tide on culture. So go broad and narrow on those no regrets. Go deep and focused on particular priorities and all the way to production.
Really good advice. In any case, like, you can start small and scale, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. Makes
And
sense.
think big. You
Yeah.
can't forget to think big.
Think
But
big.
you have but also you have to be flexible, right? Like you can set all these firm visions and like this hasn't changed, right, for the last decade or so in technology. Just because we've had all of this hype with AI, often people seem to lose their minds around how to think about driving adoption in technology. The principles remain. Have a firm vision, be flexible and iterative on how you get there, build modular, interoperable, scalable technical architectures, take non-regrettable risks, focus on business value, work back from that business value to the right solution, not the other way around. These are principles you have to still adopt on AI.
Makes sense. Okay. Keeping in mind the viewers of this podcast, professionals who want to learn AI, especially agentic in the agentic space, what would be your comments for our viewers and people interested in learning AI? What would be your advice for them?
So yeah, look, this is a challenge because I think everyone can agree, like the speed is breakneck, right? It's just
Yeah,
every week there's a new model, every week there's something new as a feature that's coming out. Keeping abreast of it all requires creating a broad network of learning, essentially. And what I'd encourage everyone to do is to build a robust network of people that you can talk to from not just within your own inner echo chamber of technology. Like I really try as much as I can to talk with lawyers and marketeers and people from all walks of life to really understand how they are thinking and adopting AI. Um, really curate your own learning paths, be proactive in doing that. Subscribe to all the usual podcasts and blogs. I personally use AI to drive an executive briefing for me every week on a number of different learning podcasts and blogs and articles because I can't get to them all. So I have AI brief me on everything every week. And so use AI to learn AI. And then you have to be hands on with the tools. You have to be, trying to vibe code,
yeah,
figuring out how hard that actually is. It's one thing to prototype something, it's another thing to vibe code something all the way to production, right? Get hands on in changing your own culture on using AI to help you with scaffolding on research before you are thinking about a topic, using AI to summarize your meetings and like using that to see if it does it well. So like all of those things I think are really important. But like I'll go back to what I said earlier as well. Like if we have to be critical in our thinking, like consume all this information, try and we have to be critical in dissecting all the hype from the reality and think practically about what is it that's useful for you right now. Because the risk is you can just get swamped in learning. And so, yeah, those are some of my tips.
makes sense. Thank you for describing it this way because it also connects to why I'm running this community to create this network of people who are learning AI together, and we can share resources and stuff like that. So that really aligns with my thinking as well.
Danny, the last thing I'd say on this maybe is beware of the person who thinks they know it all about AI because no one knows it all, right? And like there is no one has the silver bullet, the golden formula for how this can work. I think
Absolutely.
finding and talking with people who are willing to debate and figure it out together and get in the trenches, I think is far more valuable than leaning on people who pretend to know it all because no one does.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, Craig, we're moving into the fun part now. Okay, so the fun part is I'll do a quick rapid fire with you. I've got a list of 6 questions, and yeah, it's a rapid fire, so just try to be quick and and pointy with your answers. Punchy answers are better.
I'll stop being long-winded now.
Sorry?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay, we'll start with the rapid fire. Tell me one reason people should be learning about AI agents.
because they'll be in everything we do and working in all of our jobs as part of our work in the future.
Tell me about one AI tool you can't live without right now.
Replit, because it's great to prototype really quickly and understand concepts fast.
Nice. What's more critical for enterprise AI success? Data or talent?
Talent, because talent builds the data and harnesses the data that's required for AI. There's a flywheel there.
Super. What's the first word that comes to your mind when you hear AI agents?
Value.
Nice. A book or podcast that shaped your thinking on AI?
Oh man. Okay. So I'm gonna go long-winded over here.
That's fine.
So like this is a bit old now, and it's weird to say old because it's probably only 18 months. But Situational Awareness by Leopold Ashton-Brenner is an awesome blog that I really think is just very futuristic. I think a book I'm reading right now is Power and Prediction by AJ Agrawal, and that's a great book about the economics of AI and the impact it will have. And sorry, I'm going to add a third one as well.
Yeah.
I listened to a podcast episode probably a couple of months ago by from Lex Friedman with Dylan Patel,
Yeah.
and that is a masterclass in the supply chain of fabs and the supply chain of chips all the way through from the infrastructure through to the software layer and how we then scale that through our organizations. And I really enjoyed that.
I heard that as well.
Yeah.
If you weren't in AI, what would you be doing today?
I would be an artist. I before I started my degree in computer science, I was in graphic design and in art college, and was very much intent on being a creative artist. I'd probably be wondering how AI is going to disrupt me being an artist right now as well, though.
Wow. Yeah, I mean you're already an artist anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for giving us some time and doing this podcast. Really enjoyed talking to you. I always do. Hopefully we'll do this again.
Anytime, Sandy. It's always good to speak with you, and thank you for setting up this community. It's a great way for us to just sharpen iron with iron.
Yeah, I'm planning to set up a meetup in London sometime for this community members. I'll invite you as well, so you can come and meet some of us.
Totally. Always up for that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Cheers, hey.